The Green Lantern Corps is home to some of DC Comics' most beloved and popular heroes. Whether it's Hal Jordan, John Stewart, Kyle Rayner, or Guy Gardner, there's at least one Lantern for every comic fan to appreciate. Since the Corps' creation in September 1959, this peacekeeping task force has been a cornerstone of the DC universe, playing a crucial role in many high-profile storylines and giving us countless unforgettable characters. Some of the company's best and most unique stories have starred wearers of the iconic Green Ring, especially in more recent years. Since the late 2010s in particular, there have been numerous ongoing runs and limited series that have taken the long-running Green Lantern concept into bold and fascinating new directions, exploring both fan-favourite and brand new heroes, and reconsidering the role of this group in an ever-changing superhero world. Truthfully, I never grew up as a massive Green Lantern fan. While they've always been present throughout my journey into DC, starting with John Stewart in the Justice League animated series, there are a set of heroes that I took a while to properly appreciate. I've always enjoyed the Green Lanterns in team books like the Justice League or in event series, however, for whatever reason, I was never a huge reader of the main solo titles. With that said, over the past couple of years, I've read a handful of great Green Lantern comics that have not only been some of my favourite books of the last decade, but really helped me understand and unlock my appreciation for this corner of the DC universe. There are 5 Green Lantern series in particular that I want to spotlight in this video. They are Far Sector by N.K. Jemisin and Jamal Campbell, Green Lantern War Journal by Philip Kennedy Johnson and Montes, Alan Scott Green Lantern by Tim Sheridan and Kian Tormey, Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp's run on The Green Lantern, and the recently released Absolute Green Lantern by Al Ewing and Janoy Lindsay. So in this video, I want to explore the history behind each of these different comics, discuss how they all came to be, and how they attempt to push the boundaries of what fans can expect from a Green Lantern comic. And consider how this legendary corner of DC's universe has quietly become home to some of the very best superhero stories published in recent memory. Before we continue though, just a quick reminder to leave a like on this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe to Owen Likes Comics so you don't miss out on any future videos. The first comic I'd like to focus on in this video is Far Sector. Created by N.K. Jemisin and Jamal Campbell, this 12-issue series introduced a brand new Lantern in Jo Mullein, and showcased her struggles to maintain peace in a distant world on the brink of societal collapse. Initially released between November 2019 and June of 2021, this comic was published by DC's Young Animal imprint, which was formed back in 2016 by Gerard Way and Jamie Rich, and has become home to some of the company's most bold and ambitious stories. Far Sector was one of the last Young Animal books to be greenlit, born out of a pitch that Way had conceived of a much different take on DC's trusty lanterns. Eager to bring his idea to life, he contacted acclaimed sci-fi novelist N.K. Jemisin. Although not previously a comic writer, Jemisin's work on her award-winning Inheritance trilogy and Broken Earth series demonstrated an incredible ability for crafting high-concept worlds that felt distinctly lived in. After Way approached her with the basic premise, a young animal Green Lantern book that would follow a brand new lantern in a unique society, Jemisin began devising the world of the city enduring, the different species that occupy it, and the various socio-political conflicts present when Jo arrives. Teaming with artist Jamal Campbell, then best known for co-creating Naomi with Brian Michael Bendis and David Walker, the duo crafted an explosive murder mystery set in a far-off advanced society where no murder has occurred in 500 years. That is, until now, with new Lantern recruit Jo Mullein forced to solve the murder and the conspiracy it unravels before the entire city descends into chaos. The main plot of Far Sector sees Joe arrive in the city Enduring after one murder is committed, but as soon as she begins her investigation and locates the culprit, they too are found dead. This shocking turn of events prompts Joe to delve deeper into the core of this society, uncovering deep political tensions between the city's three species, as well as how the city's inhabitants have been exposed to emotion exploit, a genetic virus that strips people of their emotions. Joe, alongside Peace Captain Cizzen, investigates the murders and the looming frustration building throughout the city towards emotion exploit, eventually discovering a black market drug called Switch Off that restores people's emotions. They learn from one of the city's councillors that this drug is spreading fast across the city, creating heightened tension about the ethics of emotion exploit and how the council are governing society. These tensions are best demonstrated in issue 4, when Joe is asked to help the Peace Division, the city's local police, in quelling an outburst between pro and anti-switch-off protesters. Despite Joe's efforts to keep the situation peaceful, the Peace Division ultimately assault the protesters with extreme force. As civil unrest continues to grow, Joe's quest to discover the causes of these murders and how they link to emotion exploit, switch off, and the council's tight grip on the city, we also see her reflect on her former life on Earth. Through a series of flashbacks, we follow Joe as she remembers her parents' divorce, joining the US military after 9/11, and later returning to New York and becoming a police officer, only to leave the force after witnessing her fellow officers brutally assaulting a suspect. Eager to make a difference and find her true purpose, Joe accepted the Green Lantern ring and took this faraway sector as her new home, but now she finds herself once again trying to maintain peace and order in a world on the brink of war. Throughout Far Sector's later issues, the Council announces a public referendum on the use of emotion exploits. However, one of the factions within the Council stages a violent coup, and civil war breaks out across the city. Despite being an outsider to this world, Joe's compassion, empathy, and perseverance eventually allows her to disarm the warring factions and restore order to the city Enduring. The comic concludes with emotion exploit being banned, the city being rebuilt, and Joe accepting her place as the sector's main protector, having finally found her purpose as the trailblazing and defiant Green Lantern. In my opinion, Far Sector is a tremendous series, and one that deserves all the acclaim and praise that it's garnered over the past couple of years. Jemison's world-building skills are a sight to behold here, as she creates this setting in the city Enduring that feels so tangible and lived in, exposing and showcasing all the various socio-political problems within this society, and making it feel like a real place at the furthest reaches of our universe. At the same time, Jo Mullein is a deeply relatable and human character at the crux of this often fantastical story. Her battle to not only understand this alien world and what caused the murders she was asked to investigate, alongside discovering her purpose as a lantern and grappling with her own past, is such an enthralling and relatable coming-of-age tale. One that results in the introduction of a brand new hero that comfortably stands alongside DC's other premier Green Lanterns. Far Sector is a comic that has plenty to say too. Despite its high concept setting, it's very much a story about the problems we face in our world today, such as police brutality, institutional corruption, and prejudice. It manages to make several profound and deep statements about all of these issues that resonate with the real-world events going on at the time of the comic's creation, while never taking away from the excellent in-universe story of Joe and the city Enduring. It's a brilliant comic and one that, upon reading it, helped reawaken my interest in Green Lantern as a concept, and I firmly believe that Far Sector is not only a highlight of DC's young animal endeavour, but of the entire company's output in the past decade. Next, I want to talk about Green Lantern War Journal. Released between November 2023 and October 2024, this series was written by Philip Kennedy Johnson with art by Montes, and featured the long-term fan favourite Lantern of John Stewart. As I alluded to in the introduction, John Stewart was very much my Green Lantern growing up. As a child of the 1990s whose first exposure to the wider DC universe was through Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, I've always had a soft spot and an appreciation for this character. And so when this series was announced, I was incredibly excited. In addition to being a Jon Stewart fan, the book's creative team also sold me on this project. Philip Kennedy Johnson has written numerous acclaimed runs in the past few years, with his work on Action Comics, especially the Warworld saga, making him a writer that I always look forward to new projects from. And in War Journal, Johnson takes one of DC's pillars and tells a profoundly human and personal story amid the high concept and fantastical world of the Green Lanterns. During an interview with AIPT, Johnson explained how he approached writing War Journal and what he wanted the comic to say about Jon Stewart as a character. He explains,
"We often see Jon in a team book, and so we get the Jon Stewart shorthand, where he just gives a little bit of military jargon, and so we're able to boil everybody down on the team to where it's like, oh, it's the ex-military guy. I want to see Jon, the ex-Marine, but also Jon the architect, Jon the son, Jon the brother, Jon in this transition between his career as a Lantern and his time as a son dealing with the end-of-life stuff, and trying to figure out what he's going to do next with his life, thinking that he's done with the Lanterns even if they're not done with him. I want to see Jon as a much more complete person, so that's kind of been the mission statement of this whole thing."
As the title may suggest, War Journal focuses on Jon's history as a US Marine and also now having retired as a Lantern, with his experiences of returning to Earth mirroring the real-life struggles of ex-servicemen and women after they return home. Given Johnson's own history as an Army veteran and musician, it's not surprising that this theme would appear throughout the comic. However, I would argue that War Journal actually focuses more on exploring other facets of Jon's character, namely his background as an architect and how that manifests in his constructs and approaches to being a Lantern, as well as his sometimes complex relationship with his family. Throughout the book's 12 issues, we see Jon reluctantly team up with the Green Lantern from another reality to stop a mysterious force called the Radiant Dead. And it's here that Johnson and Montes emphasise the hero's status as the Guardian and the Builder, and how both Jon's powers, his architectural background, and his enduring humanity enable him to be a protector for those in need. War Journal starts with Jon now back on Earth, travelling with his mother to Metropolis for a job interview at Steelworks Tower. At the same time, a group of astronauts are attacked by a paranormal interdimensional entity wielding the Dark Star Ring, with this force making its way to Earth and corrupting 3 Green Lanterns. While Jon and his mother travel home, their train is attacked by the Radiant Dead, with Jon becoming infected by its mysterious plague. Keelan Shepherd, a Green Lantern from a different universe who has followed the Radiant Dead, arrives and takes Jon back to Steelworks Tower. As John Henry Irons investigates his arm, Shepherd explains that the Radiant Dead and its leader, the Revenant Queen, killed all of the Green Lanterns in his universe until being vanquished by its Jon Stewart, causing them to travel across realities and seek revenge. Despite his infection and the responsibility he feels to care for his mother, who was recently diagnosed with dementia, Jon agrees to help Shepherd to stop the undead horde from destroying the galaxy. The comic then tells its story from 2 perspectives, one focusing on Jon, Shepherd and Kyle Rayner battling the Radiant Dead, and the other spotlighting how Jon creates constructs of his deceased sister to help care for his mother, until they're also targeted by the Horde. At the midway point of the comic, Jon is pulled through an interdimensional portal and winds up near the Dark Star of Fen, where he has to protect the local population against the monstrous Star Shroud. Meanwhile, Shepherd is forced to team with Guy Gardner to help find Jon, with the duo eventually bringing him home and setting the stage for a climactic showdown with the Revenant Queen. Jon's experiences in the Dark Star of Fen, as well as his time caring for his mother, allow him to embrace his destiny as the Guardian and the Builder, eventually defeating the Revenant Queen and banishing the Radiant Dead. With this threat gone, the comic concludes with Jon reuniting with his mother, who ultimately passes away in his arms. We then see Jon returning to duty as a Green Lantern, with the construct of his late sister by his side. As the pair fly towards the sky, a second construct appears alongside them, as the spirit of Jon's late mother joins them as they race towards their next adventure. War Journal is a fantastic series and, in my opinion, a definitive modern comic for Jon Stewart. It's a profoundly human and personal tale about grief, loss and love, as well as a bombastic and exciting sci-fi action horror story that showcases the best of DC Comics and the Green Lantern Corps. Not only is Montes' art stellar throughout each of its 12 issues, but Johnson's take on Stewart feels so relatable and earnest, anchoring us to John's anxieties, struggles, and aspirations as we witness him both reach new heights as a superhero and struggle with genuinely human and everyday problems. When considering the significance of War Journal and what it tells us about John Stewart as a character, I sat down with my friend Retro Reviews to get his perspective on this story and what it might mean for the future of this iconic Green Lantern.
Like most people, my first exposure was the Justice League cartoon and the DCAU, and growing up, it's become one of those things where I'm kind of conflicted on it, but I still love, that John Stewart. I can never hate, John Stewart from the Justice League cartoon. Seeing this like prominent Black superhero on TV for such a long time and like being like the Green Lantern, like for a long time, for about like a decade during that time, John Stewart was the Green Lantern. But then once I got to like reading John Stewart's comics, especially the ones that were like the modern stuff after the cartoon, it changed my perspective. I was kind of like, why is this all he is? More recently, I've gone into the Englehart run, the Len Wein run of Green Lantern, and then Green Lantern Corps. So like those Green Lantern comics kind of just like changed my mind completely on what John Stewart really could look like. He's working as an architect at Ferris Aircraft after like this shift of once the DCAU like made him a Marine man, and then Jeff Johns kind of took that and ran with it. Now, like his biggest moment is the fact that he created a sniper rifle and shot like the Black Lanterns. I can maybe put on my finger the amount of times that he has like mentioned architecture outside of War Journal, like in the past like 20 years, which is ridiculous. One of the like more prominent like lines that John Stewart has is when his mom, it's one of the first lines, when his mom asked him like how he fixed something, he's like, he looked at it from the inside out. You flash back to like how he works his constructs and also how he like actually like builds and fixes things and all that kind of stuff. It's there are a lot of like small like things there where you do see that like Johnson does get it, and that's like primarily why the book works so well, because while there is battles with a Revenant Queen and undead and all that kind of stuff, that's not the point of the book. It's really like his connection to architecture and his family and how that affects Johnson as a person, and also like you said, like being an ex-serviceman, being an ex-Green Lantern even. I feel like the way Johnson like handles John as a character with so much tact, and it makes me forget sometimes that, oh, there is a white man behind this. Not in a bad way, not in a good way either way. It's just one of those things where it's like, oh my God, like there is a writer who sees this character as a person first, and really like you don't really get the sense that he is Black anywhere in there. It's just like this is a man who is who's struggling with this family and is struggling with this life, and how does he like build from there? To me, like I really like the Englehart and Len Wein stuff, but I think when it comes to like truly getting like John Stewart as a multifaceted character, like it's probably the best since Denny O'Neil. It adds layers, and that's what you want, from a story like this, from a mini or maxi series, really, where it's there's not a lot of time. Do what you can with this small amount of time to really define like how you feel about this character and how this character should be presented. And if I had to pick like the things that I really love about this book, it's the way that Johnson treats John Stewart as a person and then a Green Lantern, and how they ultimately connect. I want that like next step for John to be. I don't need him to be the Green Lantern, of course, but I do want, whenever he is on the page, like respected the way like he should be. All I want is just to see like more of him and more respect for him in the comics. War Journal's a step in the right direction for sure. And any other writer that picks up and just like sees that and's like, work with this and I'll work with this and continue forward, that's a win to me.
Anyone who's watched my work for any amount of time probably knows that Grant Morrison is my all-time favourite comic book writer. I've covered many of their books over the years and even been fortunate enough to meet them on a handful of occasions. And so when DC announced back in 2018 that they and artist Liam Sharp would be teaming up for a new run on Green Lantern, as you might imagine, I was intrigued to say the least. Beginning in November 2018, this comic was structured into seasons, initially published as a 12-issue run, which then spun into a 3-part event. A second season of 12 issues was then released, with Morrison and Sharp's run ending in March of 2021. With this being one of Morrison's last written comics to date, I think The Green Lantern is a really fascinating series. It's an introspective examination of legacy and very much looking back to the past, reintroducing and recontextualizing many aspects from DC's Silver Age into the present day, framed through a study of one of the company's main characters, Hal Jordan. In interviews leading up to the book's launch, Morrison described wanting to capture the feel of an episodic procedural drama, with each issue showcasing Hal's journeys through space and the various problems he has to solve. With that said though, The Green Lantern is also extremely high concept, featuring long forgotten plotlines and characters, multiple universes, and callbacks to books like Final Crisis and Multiversity. It almost feels like a grounded, serialized western that's also set in a highly fantastical world where literally anything is possible. The overarching plot of Morrison and Sharp's first season focuses on the Guardians of the Universe declaring a traitor is within their ranks. In secret, the Guardians task Hal Jordan with a covert mission to dishonor himself in order to infiltrate a deadly group called the Black Stars and thwart their plans to conquer the universe. With the rest of the Corps unaware of Hal's mission, we follow Jordan on his usual adventures. After the Earth is stolen by an alien auctioneer and bought by an entity masquerading as God, Hal is fired from the Corps for assaulting a suspect. Discredited, he's stalked by the vampire Belezebeth, who invites him into the Black Stars. After Hal accepts, we learn about this mysterious group's history. Formed by an alien race called the Controllers, the Black Stars are essentially a more militaristic and cult-like version of the Green Lanterns. They're led by Controller Mu, who sends his soldiers out throughout space to locate artifacts capable of building a miracle machine, which he hopes to use to rewrite space and time. Once Hal is admitted into the Black Stars and given the new name of Black Star Parallax, he works as a double agent until his loyalty is tested when he's asked to kill Adam Strange. Unable to execute his longtime friend, the pair work together to fake Adam's death, allowing him to escape while seemingly proving his devotion to the Black Stars. However, in issue 6, Controller Mu reveals he knows Hal was sent by the Guardians and tries to detonate a bomb capable of destroying the universe. With no other option, Hal unleashes the full power of his ring, stopping the bomb but causing him to become engulfed in the blast and be trapped inside his lantern ring. From here, Morrison and Sharp tell a series of fun one-shot stories, including Hal's journey to escape the ring, returning to Earth for a team-up with Green Arrow, and being recruited to join a multiversal team of lanterns to fight a mysterious threat called the Quarman, who hails from the antimatter universe. These seemingly self-contained adventures all build to the 12th issue and the final part of Season 1, where Quarman is revealed to be the antimatter version of Hal Jordan, unleashed by Controller Mu as his secret weapon. To stop his counterpart from destroying all of reality, Hal is forced to reluctantly join the Black Stars and activate the Miracle Machine, with the comic ending with the entire universe being rewritten and creating a new timeline where the Guardians and the Lantern Corps never existed. This story continues in the 3-issue miniseries Green Lantern Black Stars, written by Morrison with art by Xamanico. In this new reality, the Guardians died centuries ago and never formed the Lanterns, and instead the Black Stars are the universe's sole peacekeeping force. We follow Hal, now a proud member of the Black Stars and about to marry Belezebeth, experiencing dreams of a wishing machine and of a Green Lantern. After he successfully leads an invasion of Warworld, Controller Mu arranges Hal and Belezebeth's wedding. wedding. However, during the ceremony, Elizabeth kills Mu and seizes control of the Black Stars. She then leads the soldiers into an invasion of Earth, with Hal recruiting Superman's son John Kent into their ranks. After defeating the Justice League and conquering Earth, Hal grows increasingly jaded with his life and the ethics of the Black Stars. He confesses these feelings to Elizabeth, and his wife reveals that she remembers the universe before Hal activated the Miracle Machine, unlocking his memories of the Guardians and the Lanterns. This reveal triggers a civil war amongst the Black Stars, with Hal using the commotion to locate and once again activate the Miracle Machine. In a final showdown with Elizabeth, he declares that he isn't Parallax of the Black Stars, but he's Hal Jordan of the Green Lantern Corps. He then uses the machine to grant one final wish, returning him to his home and trapping Elizabeth in this alternate reality, now situated within Earth 15. These events lead into the second season of Morrison and Sharp's tenure. While season 1 focused heavily on Hal's cosmic adventures, season 2 shifts the book to being a more earthbound series. The first issue sees Hal being congratulated for stopping the Black Stars, until a new group of Guardians take over the Corps. The new Guardians send Hal back to Earth, explaining that someone has killed a lantern and is hiding in his homeworld. As such, the book follows Hal on his journeys from place to place, searching for the killer and encountering various friends and foe along the way. Following a fight with a group of soldiers from the antimatter universe in issue 6, Hal is seemingly killed. He's then offered the chance to become the Death Lantern by the new Guardians, and witnesses each iteration of his past self, from his initial days as a Lantern to his time as Parallax, and even when he became the Spectre. Merging with all of these previous forms, Hal rejects the Guardians' offer and returns to life, leading the charge against the antimatter invaders. Morrison and Sharp's run would conclude in March of 2021, with the pair's final issues seeing Hal journey to Earth 11 and encounter a doppelganger from a misogynistic Lantern Corps, take part in the Ultra War, and be forced to battle in a swords and sorcery world without his ring. The climactic issue 12 takes on a particularly interesting form, as not only does it mark Morrison's last penned superhero comic to date, but Liam Sharp draws the series in a style similar to Morrison and Dave McKean's Arkham Asylum comic, giving the issue a climactic and almost full circle feel for the writer. For me, Morrison's time on the Green Lantern makes for a really intriguing and compelling series. While Hal Jordan has never been my personal favourite Green Lantern character, the way Morrison presents him and the way Liam Sharp draws him really makes me connect with him in a way I personally haven't found since Darwin Cook in The New Frontier. Morrison's take on Hal Jordan is almost this beatnik bohemian wanderer, who just so happens to be caught up in the highly fantastical world of the DC universe. Given Morrison's penchant for reintroducing forgotten Silver Age lore into modern stories, certain aspects of this run can feel somewhat inaccessible and hard to comprehend. I myself struggled keeping up with some parts of this series due to the vast amount of information and concepts thrown at you, but when looking beyond the surface level plot, there's a fascinating examination of Hal Jordan the character here, as well as how Morrison uses the Green Lantern to consider their own legacy and career. Hal is depicted here as a seasoned, experienced Lantern, working alongside a much younger generation who idolise him, with this concept being taken further in season 2 with the appearance of the new Guardians. This idea of generations and Hal having to figure out his place in an ever-changing world is featured prominently throughout the run, as does a focus on exploring Hal's past and how his heroics light the way for a brighter future. Reflecting on this work on their Substack newsletter Xanadum, Morrison wrote in May of 2022 that
I think the whole thing, including Season 1, the annual, Black Stars, and Season 2, hangs together as a tight and complete portrait of a complex, contradictory veteran character who's seen and done it all. Liam and I had creative freedom and a joyful working relationship on a book where anything could happen, and very often did. And the result, we hope, is a thematically tight collection of interlocking short stories that add up to a timeless portrayal of Hal Jordan as we saw him after his decades of character development.
And with all of this in mind, I enjoy the Green Lantern quite a lot. It's one of my all-time favourite writers doing what they do best, telling unapologetically grand and ambitious stories that bring back and recontextualise decades-old ideas and present them in new, sometimes challenging but always interesting ways. In many ways, it's almost the most Grant Morrison comic conceivable, and while I'm aware that might not be for everyone, in this instance it certainly was for me. The Green Lantern is both a great reminder of Hal Jordan's legacy and why his stories still matter after so many years of existence, but also, when you dig a little deeper into it, one last hurrah from one of the greatest writers to ever grace the printed page. Alan Scott is the oldest character to carry the Green Lantern mantle. While not traditionally a member of the Green Lantern Corps, he was the first character to adopt this name. Created back in July of 1940 by Bill Finger and Martin Nadell, Alan was a mainstay in the golden age of DC Comics, becoming one of DC's flagship heroes and a founding member of the Justice Society of America. However, the character later fell out of favour and the Green Lantern title was cancelled in 1949. DC subsequently introduced a new Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, a decade later in Showcase number 22, and in the years since, tried numerous ways to reintroduce Alan Scott into the mainline continuity, with the JSA being depicted as everything from heroes from a parallel universe to an older generation of crime fighters who fought during World War II, and even received a modern reboot that reimagined them as young heroes fighting to save a world without its main protectors. In the pages of Earth 2 by James Robinson and Nicholas Scott, we meet a younger Alan Scott as he and his fiancée Sam are in a train accident. While Sam is killed, Alan is miraculously saved by the Green, an elemental force that connects all living entities, which selects him as its champion. This version of Scott then becomes the Green Lantern and teams up with several other versions of classic Golden Age heroes, protecting a world where Batman, Superman and Wonder Woman all died many years earlier. Although this version of the classic Green Lantern was distinct from DC's main continuity, several aspects of his character were carried over following Earth 2's cancellation. Namely, in Infinite Frontier issue 0 by James Tynion and Stephen Byrne, Alan reunites with his now adult children Jade and Obsidian, and reveals to them that he is gay. Following this, DC commissioned a 6-issue series to retell the character's origin, spotlighting his heroics during the 1930s and 40s, as well as his struggles being a closeted gay man during this period. Written by Tim Sheridan with art by Kian Tormey, Alan Scott the Green Lantern was released between October 2023 and May of 2024. The series primarily takes place in both 1936 and 1941, with the latter seeing Green Lantern solving a mystery related to his past, and the former focusing on his origin story. In the first issue, Alan is recruited to join the Justice Society by J. Edgar Hoover, who uses knowledge of the hero's sexuality to effectively blackmail him into joining the team. Alan later fights alongside the Flash to thwart a bank robbery, where they find the robber dead on the roof, with a mysterious red spectre surrounding the scene. As Flash carries the body out of the building, Alan is shocked to recognise his face as his ex-partner Robert. We then cut back to 1936, where Alan is working on a top-secret government project called Project Crimson, where he meets and falls in love with Johnny Ladd. The pair are forced to keep their relationship secret until Johnny is killed in an accident while trying to locate the mysterious Crimson Flame. With the pair's secrets subsequently coming out, Alan is discharged from the army and sent to Arkham Asylum, where he undergoes electroshock and conversion therapy and befriends a trans woman named Billy. During his stay at Arkham, Alan is gifted a lantern by Billy, who assures him that there is nothing wrong with him and nothing that needs to be fixed. After Billy is lobotomized, Alan and several other inmates, including Robert, stage a breakout of the asylum. Years later, Alan is working as a train engineer alongside his new partner Jimmy. After Jimmy is killed when the train they're working on is sabotaged by a rival company, Alan is saved when his lantern comes to life and grants him superhuman abilities. Back in the present day of 1941, Alan works with Flash and the Spectre to investigate Robert's death, theorising that someone is targeting people close to his past. As Alan begins to believe that all of these deaths are somehow linked to his time at Project Crimson, the strange red entity from the bank robbery looms over him. At the end of issue 4, this figure finally confronts Alan, revealing himself to be not only the Red Lantern, but Alan's presumed dead boyfriend, Johnny Ladd. It's later revealed that Johnny was actually a Russian spy named Vladimir, sent to infiltrate the US's top secret project and feed intel back to the Soviet Union. Following his apparent death, Vladimir bonded with the Crimson Flame and harnessed its power to become the Red Lantern. The two former lovers fight throughout much of issue 5, with Alan eventually overcome by rage, grabbing Vlad's Red Lantern and absorbing the Crimson Flame, causing him to lose complete control. As this is going on, Alan's close friend Darby finds his home ransacked, and in a moment of desperation, grabs his trademark lantern and allows it to send a beam of energy across the city. This energy hits Alan, and he's suddenly transported back to his old job as a train engineer, where he sees a construct of his former boyfriend Jimmy. Jimmy reveals himself to actually be the personification of Starheart, a power source created by the Guardians that fuels Alan's lantern. Jimmy explains the Crimson Flame's origin, stating that it's made from the same energy as Starheart, but became corrupted, and that he and Vladimir need to work together to prevent a greater threat on its way. Alan returns to the real world and immediately shoots into the sky, discovering a stream of red energy erupting throughout the city. Whilst he and Vladimir watch, they're suddenly attacked by a group of Russian soldiers wielding weapons powered by the Crimson Flame, who destroy Vladimir's lantern and brand him a failure. As the two men realise they have to call a truce and reluctantly work together, Vladimir opens up about his years of mistreatment and weaponization by the Russian military. The duo are backed up by the JSA, but their fight with this group, called the Crimson Heat, is interrupted when Vladimir suddenly unleashes a massive blast of energy that kills all the soldiers stood before them. While the JSA watch on shocked, Vladimir surrenders and asks Alan to arrest him for his crimes. The comic then concludes with Alan visiting him in jail, where despite their difficult history, they share a tender moment together. After leaving the facility though, Green Lantern is confronted by J. Edgar Hoover, who chastises him for not extracting information on the Crimson Flame's whereabouts. Unlike their earlier encounter though, Alan stands up to Hoover here, declaring that he and his friends in the JSA no longer work for him. The book's closing moments then take us to the now present day, where a much older Alan reunites with his son Obsidian. He tells Obsidian the story of him and Vladimir, and how he spent much of his adult life questioning his identity and whether or not he could be accepted for who he was. Obsidian embraces his father and thanks him for opening up about his past. He then asks Alan if he would do anything differently if he could go back, as we witness Alan writing a letter to his former self, encouraging him to never be ashamed of who he is, and to use his power to be a source of light in an often dark and cruel world. I remember being so curious and intrigued when Alan Scott the Green Lantern was first announced. Not only is Alan such a seminal character in DC history, but I've also been a long-time fan of Tim Sheridan's work, dating back to his time working in the DC animated movies and writing films like Superman Man of Tomorrow. Having spoken to and interviewed Tim a handful of times over the years, I knew that this was a huge passion project for him, and alongside artist Kian Tormey, would provide something truly heartfelt and sincere. During my trip to New York Comic Con late last year, I actually sat down with Tim Sheridan to discuss Alan Scott the Green Lantern, how this series came to be, and what this reimagining of the classic hero's origin story means for him.
I mean, it's extremely personal. It came to me out of my working with Jeff Johns on Flashpoint Beyond, and he set up some interesting stuff at the end of Flashpoint Beyond that he surprised us with one day, and we were like, oh, this is so cool, like what's this going to end up being? And then it turned out it ended up being like, I think you should write an Alan Scott book. Jeff had pitched the new Golden Age concept of doing the 3 titles. Well, he pitched, I think, a really big concept. And it was going to be Jay Garrick and Wesley Dodds and Alan Scott. And Jeff called and said, hey, I think DC wants to do it. And I told him, I think you should write the Alan Scott story.
Wow.
And I hadn't really, I never thought I was going to do that story. But it's a story that I think the fans really needed and were craving. When Alan Scott, when they had him come out of the closet years ago, fans, I think rightfully, they thought, oh, well, if you're going to do that, where's the story?
We want to see learn about his experience.
Let's find out why that's an important thing for this character.
Absolutely.
And so finally, when we had the opportunity to go back to the Golden Age, it opened up the door to tell Alan's story through the lens that we see him through today. And that was, it's daunting, but in many ways, it was like adaptation. It was like Man of Tomorrow. And also, I'm reintroducing the character, but also introducing the character to so many people who aren't familiar with Alan's lore, So there was a lot to condense, a lot to get out there, in addition to telling what I wanted to tell, which was a love story. And not just a love story about the 2 main characters, but about Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, learning how to love himself.
Throughout its 6 issues, Alan Scott the Green Lantern manages to both retell the hero's origin for a modern audience, capturing much of what made his Golden Age adventures so popular, while also incorporating the character's struggles as a gay man during this period. It does an excellent job at balancing both the fictional adventure of Green Lantern, solving a mystery tied to his past, and being a superhero comic that isn't afraid to discuss what it means to be queer, both back in the 1940s and today, with moments such as Alan's time in Arkham Asylum being especially harrowing and at times difficult to read. Nevertheless, Sheridan's ability to make readers empathise and resonate with Alan's battle to find himself, combined with Kian Tormey's excellent artwork, made this series one of my favourite books of 2023, and one of the most heartfelt superhero tales I've honestly read in quite a while. Throughout this year, I've become such a huge fan of DC's Absolute Universe. Launched back in October of 2024, this new series of interconnected stories allows for bold and daring reimaginings of some of DC's biggest and most popular characters. Books like Absolute Superman by Jason Aaron and Rafa Sandoval, Absolute Martian Manhunter by Dennis Camp and Javier Rodriguez, and Absolute Wonder Woman by Kelly Thompson and Hayden Sherman have become some of my favourite titles to read each month. Truthfully, I'm thoroughly enjoying every Absolute book that's been released so far, and I've been keen to recommend them to friends, casual superhero enjoyers, and long-time comic fans looking for something new. I remember being in the room at New York Comic Con last year when Al Ewing's Absolute Green Lantern series was announced. In the past few years, Al Ewing has become one of my favourite comic book writers, and I immediately knew that his skills with world building and reworking and reimagining complex mythos would be a perfect fit for a brand new take on the Green Lanterns. Al Ewing has frequently described Absolute Green Lantern as a horror book, one that heavily focuses on the fear and paranoia of the unknown, and just from its initial 2 issues, this concept is clear to see. The comic takes place in the rural town of Evergreen, Nevada. Here we're introduced to its 3 main characters, former police officer Joe Mullane, local toy collector Hal Jordan, and former US Marine turned architect John Stewart. As the trio meet for lunch one day, the town is suddenly engulfed by a strange green glow. While people watch in horror, a giant alien appears in the sky alongside an enormous green structure that suddenly crashes down onto the town. Throughout their experiences interacting with this alien, which we later learn is Abin Sur, both Hal and Joe are transformed, but while Joe obtains the power of the Green Lantern, Hal's arm is corrupted by a mysterious dark energy, and he experiences visions of an unknown ring. In the second issue, the citizens of Evergreen react to this extraterrestrial encounter, with local sheriff Guy Gardner seemingly being killed, while John Stewart teases his own yellow ring. So far, the first 2 issues of Absolute Green Lantern have mainly focused on setting up the basic concept and mystery that will drive the series. Who is Abin Sur? Why did he come to Earth, and more specifically Evergreen? How did Joe gain her powers? And what exactly happened to Hal Jordan? Much of what this series will be is still very much unfolding, with Ewing and Lindsay clearly taking a mystery box approach to unravelling its narrative. Nevertheless, I've been incredibly fascinated by this series so far. I think it's such a bold and daring reimagination of the Lantern's lore, and one that takes these characters into a much more prominently horror direction. I firmly believe that Absolute Green Lantern is shaping up to be a really unique and memorable comic, and for those who might not yet have checked it out, I highly advise getting on board now, as the book will only continue to develop in the coming months. This video wasn't designed to be a comprehensive overview of every great Green Lantern comic published in the last 10 years, and me not including or mentioning any specific run shouldn't be taken as an indictment on its quality. Instead, I wanted to spotlight the books that really helped me fall in love and learn to appreciate both the individual Green Lantern characters and the wider core and mythos surrounding them. As I said in the introduction, I've always struggled to find my in with Green Lantern. Although I enjoyed characters like John in the Justice League cartoons, Kyle in the JLA comics of the late 90s and early 2000s, or Hal Jordan in books like Darwin Cook's The New Frontier, this corner of the universe was always something of a blind spot for me in DC. But upon reading these titles, and a handful of other great books from decades past, I've grown to seriously appreciate these heroes and the things they represent. These 5 comics though, I think all have something really interesting to say, and some common themes that run throughout each of them. Many of these comics focus on heroes grappling with their past, past, seeking to either find or rediscover who they are, or using their superheroics as a metaphor for unlocking their potential and purpose. This is evident in Jo's struggles in Far Sector, finding her place in this faraway world and choosing not to be defined by her troubled life on Earth. In War Journal, we follow Jon Stewart as he initially tries to move on from his time as a Lantern, only to be dragged back into it with the fate of the universe at stake. When Jon initially comes back reluctantly, his battle with the Radiant Dead reminds him of his purpose as the Guardian and the Builder, and through the course of the story, cements him as unquestionably one of the greatest heroes in all of comics. Likewise, Alan's struggles with identity and sexuality manifest quite literally in the Red Lantern's appearance, with Alan and Vladimir's battles both against and alongside each other, mirroring the character's inner war to find peace with who he is. Morrison and Sharp's Green Lantern run also tackles this idea, but in a more metatextual way, forcing Hal to face off with characters and concepts from the hero's past, and bringing these ideas from the Silver Age Green Lantern stories back into the present day. And although it still is very much in its infancy, Absolute Green Lantern is a comic all about challenging readers' history and expectations with these characters, and making us second guess everything we think we know about Green Lantern. Alongside this, I think all of these series really excel because of their strong creative voices. All of these series feel like deeply personal tales from the writers and artists responsible for them, infusing many of their real thoughts, feelings and lived experiences into the trials and tribulations of these fictional characters. By doing this, it gives the stories of Hal, Jon, Jo, Alan and all of the other characters a distinctly human and relatable edge, anchoring us to them as we journey off into the more fantastical and wacky corners of DC storytelling. More so than anything else, I want this video to be a showcase of some of my favourite comics of the past couple of years, and either encourage you to check out a book that you might not have already read, or revisit an old favourite with a new perspective. I think they're all fantastic, and some of the best books DC have published in the past 10 years, as well as a fitting reminder of the Green Lantern Corps' enduring legacy and why these characters remain so integral and vital to not just entertain us, but to help shine the light towards a brighter future. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to leave a like on this video and leave a comment down below as well. Let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about in today's video. I can't wait to hear what you have to say as always. If you're new to Owen Likes Comics, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notify bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you enjoyed this and you want some more, there should be some other videos on screen right now that you might also enjoy. If you want to help support the channel or help me make more videos, you can do so by going over to patreon.com/OwenLikesComics, or if you just want some more of me, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram and Blue Sky, just at Owen Likes Comics. But that's all for this video. Again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you next time. But until then, take care and keep reading.